Hello everyone and welcome to another section of the course. In this section, we'll be talking about classes, the new keyword, and the this keyword. Three quite tricky concepts, but they are not used all that much. So I'm gonna let you know everything you need to know about them and then we can move on. In this lecture specifically, we're gonna talk about the new keyword. The new keyword has multiple aspects related to it. But for now, let's just consider the most basic functionality the new keyword offers. It creates a new object. Yeah, that's it. Not so difficult to grasp, right? The new keyword creates a new empty object. Enough of talking. Let's dive into the code and create a person object. So far, we learned that we can create an object like this. Const person is equal to, and then you simply specify an opening and a closing curly brace that denotes an object. But now we can use the same thing to create an object using the new keyword. We can do that like this. Const person1 is equal to new, and then we can use the object constructor like so. Let's see what is the difference between the two approaches. Console.log, and there we're going to console log the person, but we're also going to console log person1, just like so. As you can see, they are both empty objects. They seem normal so far. What this single line of code did is create an empty object called person. We can treat this person1 object the same as we would treat the person. We can add new properties to it in the same way we did before. So person.firstName, and then we can make that equal to John, but let's do the same thing with the person1. As you can see, they are identical. They are completely the same. We can also use the typeOf operator on both of these objects, and they both return the same thing, an object. So you must be wondering, what are the differences? Why would we use this syntax instead of using this one? Well, the second way allows us to create something known as an object constructor. With that, we can create a lot of the objects of the same type. What is the difference between two approaches, and why would you ever want to use the second one? The answer is, if you want to create a simple object, you never need to use the second approach. This is the same thing. This is simply a shorthand for absolutely the same thing. Let me show you a few more examples. In the same way, we can create an array. Const arr is equal to an array. This is it. This is the literal syntax, creating it immediately. In the same way, we can create an array using the new array thing, just like so. Now I can pass in 1 to 3, or I can immediately add 1 to 3 in this array. Let's check the difference. Console log, arr, and we can do arr1. Now, as you can see, they are identical. We use these things so often that they are literally ingrained in here. We use the literal syntax to create an array. No need to every time say new array. So when do we need to use that new keyword? Well, at the start of the course, we talked about dealing with dates in JavaScript, and that looks something like this. Const myDate is equal to new date. And then in there, you can do something like August, and let's do 11th of 2025. Okay, and now if we console log it, from that myDate or the new date creator, JavaScript creates a date object. So that means that date is just a special object that is built into JavaScript. For that reason, we need to use the new date because there is no literal syntax for creating the date. There's not something, and I'm making things up now, there's no syntax that looks like this, for example, that's immediately going to create a date object. It's simply not necessary because we don't use dates all that often, so we can just use new date like so. And with this date, since it is a special type of an object, we can use a lot of things. So for example, we can now call a method called getFullYear, and that's going to give us a full year if we call it as a method, and there we go, 2025, it works. How does that work? Where did we get that method from? Same thing when we create an array. We automatically have all these new methods like pop, push, slice, splice, and so on. Where do these come from? This is because when you create a date, when you create an object, when you create an array, when you create a number or string or anything really, you're actually creating a new object in JavaScript that is extended off of the specific constructor. So let's take a look at all of these different data types. Console log, and then in there, I'm gonna put the array constructor in there. We can also do something like this. Object, let's also do number, and let's do date, for example, since we just mentioned it. As you can see, these are all functions that when they are run with the new keyword in front of them, they will return an object. And that's why we say that everything in JavaScript is an object. Because even though a number is just a number, when we create a new number, we have a bunch of methods to use on it. So if we do something like this, const my number is equal to new number, and then we pass in 100, now we can use a lot of built-in properties on this number. For example, my number that to fixed, and then we pass in 0. This is going to make sure that we don't want any decimals. Now let's console log that. And let's change the number to something like 100.234. Now, if we save it, you can see we get 100. This method did its thing, and that's it. So that's what we mean when we say that everything in JavaScript is an object, because even things that are numbers are a type of number, they are also an object, meaning they're packed with all of these little methods. So just for a second, let's go back to creating a normal array. Const arr, and now in here, this is our array where we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on that array, we can do something like array.push, and we can push 5. Then we can console log it. As you can see, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you might be asking yourself, how are we getting all of these methods even though we didn't use the new keyword? Well, we can do that because of the literal syntax, just like that. And that, behind the scenes, creates an object with all of these properties. So the only difference between using this and using the new array is that this is the shorter syntax. Other things are exactly the same, but with some other things like dates, they don't have a literal syntax, so that's the only reason why we need to use the new keyword. I hope that this lesson clarified just a bit why we use the new keyword and how all data types in JavaScript behave. Why do we have these methods? Why is everything an object? Great. In further lectures of this section, we're going to talk about this keyword and about classes. So far, we've already seen that we can use something known as a constructor to create a lot of different objects. But using the class syntax, that's going to be so much easier. So let's move on.